Oh, wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. How you guys doing this Friday evening, this pre-Shabbat? How you guys doing? Hope you guys are doing okay. Hope you're positive, or at least, you know, working on that. If you're not, you know, we all. I know it's difficult times for some people, so you know, find peace. Hopefully, we can bring a little peace right now and plug out of the matrix. If you guys don't mind, I'm plugging out of the matrix right now with me so we can go on the Nebuchadnezzar ship, right? All right. Was so we're gonna go ahead and if you guys don't mind also uh that I'm gonna read another chapter of this book with you guys, if you don't mind. It looks very interesting. Looks pretty interesting. Very interesting. Make sure to, if you haven't, check out the whole playlist. This is part 5. We're reading a lot of chapters of Ancient and Modern Britons. That's the book. We're on volume 1 still right now. Okay, so these are all the previous videos. So again, the playlist, just go to my playlist tab and look for Ancient and Modern Britons playlist, Kurimeo, and you can find all the previous drop. And here it is. Oh, wow. Yeah. Ancient and Modern Britons, a retrospect, volume 1. And again, David MacRitchie is the author. Let me just make sure we give him the full. So again, this is the book, in case anybody is wondering. Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1, by David MacRitchie. Shout out to David MacRitchie for all the drop. Okay, give him the proper due respects for bringing this information out. Okay, and let me see, 1884. All right, 1884 is when they published the book. We're gonna go ahead and go to chapter 9 today. We've read a couple chapters. We've read 7, 8. We're gonna make sure to read 9. 10 looks very interesting as well. So we're gonna get to all these chapters. I've pre-read a lot of this stuff. I've had these books for a long time. Um, but it's great to be able to go back over them with you guys and with all the new information and everything, and put the pieces of the puzzle together some more and have a more solid foundation and just know certain things instead of just believe. Just know it. Know it as a fact. This is history. This is facts we're going to read. Nobody's blackwashing. This ain't about stealing anybody's culture or trying to say some other people are not. If you got the genealogy, and the oral traditions, then you got that. You know, we're just talking about for a people that's genealogy, heritage, history has been erased, paper genocide, forgotten, people have been reclassified, and the whole out of Africa thing didn't just happen to American Indians or so-called Black Americans. It happens in Europe too. It happened in Europe. A lot of the Black Europeans were also given the same narrative that they came out of Africa, and a lot of them didn't. All right, guys, a lot of them didn't. I mean, we should be already at that point to know that's a fact. That's not conjecture, it's not a belief, that's a fact. It's in all the anthropological books, the science. They've proven it now. They're telling you who's the first Scottish, who's the first Briton, who's the first person in Spain or Iberian, and they all just showing swarthy people. So, you know, disclaimer. Because, it has been seen that the topography of our country, remember, we went over the topography and the names, meaning land of the blacks and all that, all these names with the word black in it. And he's letting you know straight up, just because there was black folks there, or people of dark complexion, swarthy people, so-called black, that's a crayon. Definitely don't want to be using that word, but that's the reference, right? So, the topography of our country and many other word witnesses in our speech all testify to the presence, of a black race, not yet blended with the white, all right? We're gonna highlight that whole thing. That's dropped right there in the first sentence, okay? Y'all see that? This is what the chapter's about. It has been seen that the topography of our country and many other word witnesses in our speech all testify to the presence of a black race not yet blended with the white, so-called white, and other evidences of history, of legend, and of custom have been adduced, but of the traditional memory of the blackamoor, still visibly impressed upon the minds of our peasantry, very little has been said. The Black Moro, who from his forest den ravaged the neighboring country, and the Black Knight of Lancashire, who held the people in vassalage and used them with great severity, were two distinct specimens, but they can be matched with many others. The popular tales of the West Highlands are full of dark-skinned people. Okay? Y'all see that? It's not me making this up. Let's zoom in case, oh, that's too much. Back up. All right. We'll leave it like that. That's what we can do. Yeah. Whose deeds are often recited by people half unconscious of the fact that they too are anything but white. In the tale of the shifty lad, there is a Gadaish dub of Akaloin, who is perhaps identical with the black robber, and Agadaish dub. Hey, don't judge me on my Gaelic. All right, shout out to Peter of the Barra fisherman story. Two tawny women figure in the tale of the soldier, and the widow's son is variously described as a slender dark lad, a black lad, and a black rough-skinned lad, while Ian, the soldier's son, encounters a black fisherman who lives in an island cave. The son of the yellow Muller Teach mentions the three sons of the dusky black king, Duin, and also introduces C.R. Dub, dusky black, prince of Lom Han, and the Gruagog, who figures in the Lay of the Great Fool, is of a brown complexion. The king of Iospinde, who is a prominent figure in the story of Conal Gulban, is a slender black man in one version, and in another, lean-boned, savage, and swarthy. All right? Hashtag so swarthy. The black warrior Mordub, that is Black Moor or Maro, Moray, or Moor, has already been spoken of, and Mr. Campbell further states, in remarking upon British traditions, that a great black giant with a club appears in many Gaelic and Breton tales. And in the same chapter, he also speaks of the Nigan Dub, Na Ludek, or Black Girl of the Clouds, as well as of certain bald, swarthy youth. In addition to these, there is, in the tale translated, the sharp gray sheep, a bald, black-skinned girl introduced, the hero of the Lay of Osgar, brown Oscar of the Alba, and a big black girl who figures in an anecdote suggested by the song of the smithy, complete my tale of West Highland specimens. That is to say, of specimens not regarded as historical. Of those that are historical, perhaps as good as an example as any will be found in the person of Alan MacRory, a black heathen of the 15th century. We are told that Alan MacRory, great grandson of Ronald and chief of Clan Ronald, was one of the principal supporters of Angus and the young lords of the Isles at the Battle of the Bloody Bay, and that he also followed Alexander of Lochculch in his invasion of Ross and Cromarty in 1491, receiving a large share of the booty taken on the occasion. His portrait is preserved in a Gaelic song, composed after his death and written down afterwards by the famous Dean of Lismore, in whose book, as translated by Dr. MacLachlan, the lines may be read. The poem or song is a hearty outburst of relief at his death and exultation over his probable fate. It begins thus: the one demon of the Gael is dead, a tale 'tis well to remember, fierce ravager of church and cross, the bald head heavy worthless bore. And he is apostrophized in another place in this fashion: MacRory from the ocean far, bald head Alan, thou so faithless, that thou hast not thine only crime, ravaged eye and relic Oran, thou art Inchigal's great curse. It is probable that he was called a boar, from the shape of his head, gear, and armor, presumably fashioned after the manner of the Oelan sculptures and the bronze beast-shaped headpieces found occasionally in Scotland. This name is plainly given to him for some reason or another, because in another line he is again styled a boar, and the reason just surmised seems like the likeliest. But in the second reference of this kind, he receives another epithet. He is the black-skinned boar, and it is stated that many were the devils in his train. Now this term of devil was at one time quite commonly used to denote certain races of black men, as will be more distinctly pointed out hereafter. So that the black-skinned Alan and his band of swarthy devils were simply so many Douglas, right? The race to which Alan belonged was styled MacRory, that is, the sons or kindred of Rory or Roderick. It is difficult to decide, when considering all surnames, the exact date at which this or that name has become meaningless. For of course, all names were once given for a reason, all right? You got your name for a reason. That was the deep one. Okay, sorry. Had to get a little drink of water there. So all names you got is for a reason, although as we now employ them, they are only convenient signboards used without any reference to their etymology. All right? Etymology of the surnames. What does it mean? Right? But in this case, the sons of Rory were well named. For Rory, Roedri or Roderick may be rendered the tawny, chief tawny, being a compound of Ruad, Jern, Rof, Old Gael, Rotan, Botan, Rotan, Wotan, Rotan, Botan, Wotan, red or ruddy, and Rik or Rai, and Gypsy, Ria, a kinglet or chief, a chief. It might have been doubtful whether Ruat in this instance signified tawny and not rosy or ruddy face or perhaps red hair. This might have been doubtful where if not for the fact that the poem just quoted from distinctly reveals those men as black skinned. Okay, so they are talking about complexion. Hey, much love and respect, Lenny. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. So swarty, yeah. That Ruat does sometimes signify tawny. We have already seen the authorities for this rendering being Dr. Armstrong and Mr. J.F. Campbell. Therefore, this etymology and the contemporaneous picture both agree in depicting those sons of Ruari as the clan of the Tawny chief, or perhaps more correctly, the clan of the chief of the Tawny people. Hey, much love and respect, LG. Appreciate it. Moreover, their genealogy also concurs with this deduction, for this pedigree shows that the clan Rory and the clan Dubgel or Dugul, Black Heathen, are descended from brothers, come from the same line. And the reason why one division of this tribe should be Ruat or Tani and the other Dub or Black may be guessed from the mixture of whites and blacks, maybe, or maybe that's just what they look like, right? Different tribes, 12 tribes, huh? That form the family tree. There being a Ronald, the white, and two different generations. In other words, the Gentiles of pure color, and the black heathen known in history as the Norsemen, and the Danes. That's who the black heathens in history were. The Vikings, yeah, black Danes had in this particular family become amalgamated. That the dark blood greatly predominated during the 15th century in the Rhodri branches shown by the Dean of Lismore book. Gotta catch up on the reading. Whether this dark blood came wholly from the Danes or partly from their kindred, the earlier Moors, may be questioned. There is more than one Ruatri in the pedigree of an ancient race, supposed to be that of the old Maor Moors or Earls of Moray, towards the beginning of the 11th century, but Moor and Dane, ethnologically regarded, are very much alike. Thus, the legends and the history of the Scottish Highlands are both witnesses to the existence of purely black people. Again, thus the legends and the history of the Scottish Highlands are both witnesses to the existence of purely so-called black people. The Welsh traditions bear a similar testimony. The hero Heredor, son of Evra, well, Evra, discover a company of bald, swarthy youths sitting at the hall door of a black giant playing at chess. All right, there, who's playing chess? Black folks. This giant is titled the Black Oppressor. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't Chief Tuscaloosa also referred to as a giant? Wasn't he a giant? So don't think all this scary, all looking giant, And seems to have been of the same genial nature as the Black Knight. As Ashton underlined, he very frankly informs Peredur that for this reason I am called the Black Oppressor, that there is not a single man around me whom I have not oppressed, and justice have I done unto none. And though it does not bear upon the present question, it is therefore satisfactory to repeat the conclusion of the dialogue between him and Peredur. Since thou hast indeed been an oppressor so long, said Peredur, I will cause that thou continue so no longer. So he slew him. While sitting in the tent of the Empress of Christinoble, the great Peredur beheld a black man enter, with a goblet full of wine in his hand, and shortly after there entered a black man of a larger stature, than the other, with a wild beast claw in his hand, wrought into the form of a goblet and filled with wine. All right, you hear his chalice? You guys hear that? A so-called black man came in with his chalice that looks like a beast claw in his hand, in the form of a goblet filled with wine. Hey, much love, Boss Gaddafi. Appreciate you. Huh. At another time, when he and other round table knights, the round table knights were in Arthur's hall, King Arthur, huh? At Harleon, they saw a black curly-headed maiden enter. Her aspect is characterized as rough and hideous. Dodge the hijack. Blacker were her face and her two hands than the blackest iron covered with pitch. They must have been very black, and her hue was not more frightful than her form. High cheeks, had she? High cheekbones, huh? And a face lengthened downwards, and a short nose with distant nostrils. And her teeth were long and yellow, huh? And her back was in the shape of a crook, and her figure was very thin and spare, except her feet, which were of huge size. In short, she had the race marks of the Negritos and Astrolioids of Professor Huxley, and in more pronounced and a hideous degree than may be seen in any living representative of these types, all right? So this is, because they're little races too, right in this too. Hainan, the son of Clitno, encountered another of those black people, a black giant with an iron club. And such giants stormed throughout the Welsh tales, okay? The black giants of the Welsh tales. The Mabino Gion, says Mr. Word Sykes, are full of black men, usually giants, always terrible to encounter. I wonder if they were running into some American Indians, like the mound builders, huh? Like the giant footers, like the skeletons they found, right? In the mounds, like Chief Tuscaloosa, right? Hey, much love, Divine Truth 60. Thank you, appreciate it. That's who they talking about, maybe? And they are all extremely ugly, they says, in which respect they resemble the misshapen and swarthy Huns, the swarthy Huns, the black Huns, the foul-mouthed and ugly Black Dane, the Black Dane, we got that, who went to Vinland to the 11th century, the ill-favored Moors and Saracens of heraldry, the hideous Egyptians who rode into Bologna in the year, or Bologna in the year 1422. All right, this is a little, of their interpretations and prejudices, right? How they're describing people. But you get the point, right? They're saying swarthy people. The deformed, the shocking Samoyeds of last century and the blubber-lipped Thiuthak, whom they are made killed. The black crisp-haired wench that came to Carleon upon Usk was surely hideous, and the other giants are invariably ugly. Mr. Sidney Lanier, in his introduction to the boys' Mabinogion, speaks of one of the Welsh worthies as having lips so large that he was accustomed to draw the lower down for an apron and to lift up the other for a hood. Told you. Very racist remarks from old times. The description is, of course, a monstrous and ludicrous caricature, drawn by others of a handsomer race, but it is plainly founded upon the remarkably coarse and flexible lips of the astroloid, an equally exaggerated picture of the man whose eyebrows hung over his eyes to such a degree that they had to be propped up with forks, again suggests the shaggy eyebrows of the same race. But all those grotesque and fanciful figures were once real men, okay? They're talking about real people. Either way, even though they're even being racist, even back then, guys, when they're writing about these people, that's what he's letting you know. They're telling you, yeah, that's what they look like. Yeah, those are black folks, or what you want to call so-called Negro. Yeah, in ancient British Isles. But all those growth, okay, so I got that already. These are real men, right? Though their deformities, horribly real at the best, are magnified and distorted to us, who look at them through the dim mist of many centuries. The giant Gornak, who was slain by Kai and the Arthurian knights, and whose castle and treasures they appropriated, was once an actual black Gentile. All right, it was a real giant. He was so-called black, though. See, Disney drew him white to us. Disney only showed us white giants, but it was actually black Gentile giants, let's say in here, living in one of the many black castles, whose names still speak of their former lords. So the shaggy-browed Yaspadaden Henkar, who, like the so-called Black Serpent or serpent-crested black man slain by Herodor, is pictured as throwing poison arrows or darts at his enemies, is pretty clearly one of those hateful, horrid giants known to the Irish chroniclers as the Tuat Figda. All right, R.I.P. That's what it was this whole time. Who carried nothing about them but poison iron. Although certain divisions of this primitive black race are now only known in Wales and elsewhere as quasi-supernatural beings, yet the blurred pictures that still remain to us are painted the proper color. In Welsh tradition, says Mr. Witt Sykes, the Bawak is usually brown, Bawak, and the Coblynau are black or copper-colored giants, huh? In face as well as dress, and of the Gurak, which word he translates hag or witch, he states that she was the wife of the Avagdu. Now, this word Avagdu is the Welsh and phonetical spelling of what is the Scottish Highlands is Ahagdub, and the English of Abhagdub is the Black Dwarf, so that the name given to the male Guraks is only another term for the Swartlings or Swarty dwarves, okay? Swartlings, Swartly, Swarty dwarves, who are stated in the Laxdæla saga to have slain Frodi, the gallant and grandsire of Olaf the White. And also, could we be talking about so-called leprechauns? And what is more, this term connects the Swartlings with the Inklings or marsh dwarves. For although Abhag is one of the Gaelic words for a dwarf, it radically means a waterman, being made up of the now obsolete Ab, water, and Ak, a termination, as in Swat Ak, hairman, signifying a person. Therefore, Abhag Dub or Abagdu, when analyzed, is seen to be literally black water dwarf, and consequently, the name generally given to the females of this race by the modern peasantry of Wales is quite appropriate, for the Guaragid and W are simply water hags or witches. Further, all these names remind one that the earliest forms of the words Maurus, more, etc., and course, cars, kiar or cr, Sarah, cr, para, para, and formerly touched upon are closely associated with the sea and marshlands as well as with the swarthy tribes they designate. Cars, cr. The Welsh tales, it has been said, are full of black giants against whom the Arthurian warriors fought. An inference from this is that Arthur's followers were white. That's an inference. That doesn't mean they were white. Because the blackness of their foes would not have been particularized. Had they been of the same hue themselves? No, that doesn't mean that. Now, the Arthur of history is said to have been himself of swarthy Silurian blood, like I just said. All right? Now, you know what? Just because, you know, I'm going to follow up on that, guys. Future video, I'm going to prove it. All right? Or is Arthur just a myth? Who is Arthur? Are we talking about Prester John only? Who really we talking about? We'll get the drop. But the author of romance has never been wholly identified with him. So there's a real author, he's saying, historical one, and there's a romance one, huh? Romanized one, just like Khalifa got Romanized. Doesn't mean it was fake, just because it got Romanized. All right? And indeed, he is altogether difficult to localize in time and place. The legendary knights of the Round Table may fairly be assumed to have been of the civilized, Christianized, and Centrocroic stock of provincial Britons, who, if represented by the barbarian prisoner of the sculpture, were in face and figure strikingly handsome, and their enemies, who are usually styled the heathen, are seen in the Welsh traditions to be black. That is, they were black heathen, like the Danes or like the Moors. For the black people, as we know, antedate the Danish branch of that stock by many centuries. How many? No one can tell. All right, no one can tell. Well, they know. Ancient, very ancient. Professor Huxley, speaking of this subject, says that probably in the time of Caesar, and certainly in that of Tacitus, there existed in these islands two distinct types of population: the one of tall stature with fair skin, yellow hair, and blue eyes; the other of short stature with dark skin, as dark as an Ethiopian, says Pliny, as dark as a Moor, says Claudian, dark hair and black eyes. We further learn that this dark population, represented by the Silures, bore considerable physical resemblance to the people of Aquitania and Iberia, while the fair population of parts of southeast Britain, the present counties of Kent and Hants, resembled the Belgae, who inhabited the northeast of France and the country now called Belgium. These Belgae again were closely akin in physical character to the tall, fair people who dwelt on the east bank of the Rhine and were called Germani. These two distinct ethnological elements, continues Mr. Huxley, probably coexisted in these islands when the country was discovered by the Romans, and the subsequent invasions to which Britain has been subjected have not introduced any new stock but have merely affected one or other of the pre-existent elements. All right, that goes for trying to say it was because Africans came and that's why they're black. Well, no, there was already a pre-existent element of so-called black folks in these places. Accepting this conclusion, then, as in the main correct, we have before us undeniable evidence, historical and ethnological, of the immemorial presence of the blacks in this country. Body back to the illusion. Break all your spells. And let's not practice cognitive dissonance, just verify the info, do the research. Other confirmatory statements have been made in the foregoing chapters, and additional evidence of traditional kind has just been adduced. In most of the examples cited of whatever nature, the two great types appear as enemies, which was their natural attitude. And a great number of the legendary instances preserve the memory of this mutual enmity. The black giants of the Welsh and other tales are hateful and horrid. The Welsh black oppressor and the black knight of Lancashire are fierce tyrants, the cruel foes of all white people. Huh? Why do white people fear them so much? Huh? So-called white. At a later date, when the whites were gaining the ascendancy and the blacks were cut up into strangling bands or lurking like the Black Morrow of Galloway in solitary dens and forest shades, out of which, oops, sorry. Oh, lost my place. I hold on. There we go. It went all the way back up. Okay. So in the solitary dens and forest shades out of which they issued by night, intent on murder and rapine. Even at this stage of their history, the blacks were the dreaded enemies of the whites. Indeed, it is of this epoch that the popular imagination has most retained the impression. The days of the black oppression. The days of the black oppression. They remember their days under black oppression. Are so remote that their memory only lives in half-forgotten legends. Not so the time when the black castles were owned by another race, and their former masters were skulking among woods and caves. So vivid was the fear of them, and so lasting its impression, that children of the 19th century peering into dark recesses timorously, or peasant girls seeing suddenly their own image reflected by the candle from the dark window pane, shiver all over with apprehension at the vision of the dreaded black man, a mere imaginary bugbear to them, but a real terror to those whom they inherited the feeling. But this state of things could not last forever. No two races, however antagonistic, could inhabit the same territory for countless generations without amalgamating. Such a thing is an impossibility. Whether in an unauthorized fashion or not, a mixed race eventually comes into being. And this is what we see in our own history. long ages ago, and in spite of a gradually dwindling party of irreconcilables, the two great sections may be seen uniting here and there, as early as the Norse and Danish invasion, and earlier than that. This has happened at various points. Fionn and Dubh did not always war against each other. All right, light-skinned people and dark-skinned people did not always fight against each other. Occasionally, they united in friendlier mood, and the result was dawn or ruad. At what date the first approach was made, it is impossible to say, though the earliest legendary record seems to be that of the story of Diarmaid. There we see the fair whites in the persons of Diarmaid and Grain, who, as the friend and wife of the Fionn, are presumably white also. Presumably, we presume, we presume they were white, so-called white crayon colors, amicably associating with their black contemporaries as represented by the stewed hog, whose violent death was preceded by several days of chess playing and love making. All right, by several days of chess playing and love making. Of historical instances after that date, enough has been said, but of traditionary examples, it may be convenient to say more. In those districts which were colonized by the white races, such as the Dutch or Flemish and the Norman at a period subsequent to the latest black invasion, it is likely that a blackamoor was to many people a being undreamt of because never seen, and when a straggling specimen of the swarthy races did by accident become visible to one of such a community, he would naturally be regarded as something uncanny. A case of this sort is presented to us in an old Welsh story, repeated by Mr. Wirt Sykes in his interesting collection, and it cannot be many centuries old. It is of a young woman who, while going one evening to milk the cows, saw, as she passed through a wood, a horrible black man standing by a holy tree. She describes him as very big in the middle, but says nothing of his features, which she was probably not near enough to see. To her great relief, he took his departure quietly, walked towards a spring where ghosts had been seen before, crossed the stile into the road, whistled loudly, and then disappeared. This Welsh girl must of course have belonged to a white community, must have, and may have, of the blood of either of two races named above, or of earlier white British blood, that is Celtic. So to him, Celtic is white British blood, huh? So that's what I'm saying. That's the hijack here and there. Another kindred instance is that of the experience of certain Scottish Covenanters who, not much more than 2 centuries ago, in one of his notes to the heart of Midlothian Scott, tells of the encounter between the once celebrated prophet Alexander Hedden and a devil in a lonely moorland cave. He also puts into the mouth of Duse Davy Deans the recital of a terrible episode of similar nature, a real incident of Covenantan times. He used to tell with great awe how he himself had been present at a field meeting at Crockmaid, when the duty of that day was interrupted by the apparition of a tall black man, who, in the act of crossing a ford to join the congregation, lost ground and was carried down, apparently by the force of the stream. All were instantly at work to assist him, but with so little success that 10 or 12 stout men who had hold of the rope which they had cast into his aid were rather in danger to be dragged into the stream and lose their own lives than likely to save that of the supposed perishing man. But famous John Semple of Carsfarn, having told them it was no other than the great enemy who couldn't drown, say we let go the rape, said David, and he went down the water, screeching and bullering like a bull of Bashan, as he's cod in scripture. Now this story does not show the entire non-acquaintance with black people that the Welsh girl's adventure does, for the black man of the Covenantan story was at first regarded as a fellow man, and even as a possible participator in the worship of the conventicle, but he was enough of rarity to make his would-be rescuers accept famous John Semple's nonsense as truth, never reflecting that any supernatural being would hardly allow himself to be swept away by the current, calling out for help after they had left him to his fate. Huh. And since the story is said to be true, we may believe it as a fact that on a certain day in the middle of the 17th century, the corpse of an unfortunate Moor or gypsy went swirling down a lowland river to the sea, thanks to the wisdom of famous John Semple. Huh. Here then, a black man was not regarded at first as extra-human, though perhaps not a very familiar object to the natives of certain districts of Scotland 6 or 7 generations back. There must, however, be many memories of the time when two opposite types were losing their individuality by peaceful intercommunion. The simple existence of a particular class of males, known as black males, already quoted, points to this, not to speak of many other black terms of like nature, implying the same result. Of Highland and Welsh, and I fancy of Irish tales, in which there are numerous evidences that the blacks were not always enemies, there is no lack, and this cannot be wondered at, since it is in particular localities of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales that the black blood shows itself the most emphatically at the present day. But even in other neighborhoods, there are manifold tokens of this faith. For example, among the floating literature that used to delight the rustics of a bygone day, those coarsely executed and often coarsely worded tracts once hawked throughout the country and known as penny chapbooks. There is one sheet which sets forth to us the comical history of a simple John and his 12 misfortunes. With John and his misfortunes we need have nothing to do, but his wife is deserving of some transitory notice, for her father is casually introduced as the Black Busher on Teot side, and the physical attributes of his daughter are quite in accordance with her lineage. Therefore, this Black Busher of Teviotdale may be taken as a representative of the peaceable, prosaic workaday blackamoor, just as the wild and savage gypsy represents or did represent the fiercer qualities of the race. All right. The epic of Simple John is not revealed by anything in the narrative. We can only say that this particular black man lived before now, as the Gaelic phrase is, but he and his like must have been very numerous at one period, for had all their kindred shared the ferocious nature of the old-time gypsy, these British Micmacs would be now the only survivors that their outnumbering, white-skinned enemies had left, and the Melanochroi of today would only number a few thousands. But the traces of our black ancestry, are visibly existent in 100 surnames, right? Very important part right here, guys, and I've been telling you, those are your surnames. 2. Some of these denote complexion, others do so but indirectly. The first class includes a great many. They are the clans Ruari and Dougal, spelled Dubh Gale or black strangers in their own genealogy. There are all the varieties of Dubh, black, such as Duff, Dow, Macduff, and others. There are Duns, Cars, and Dargs, with their equivalent duns, browns, grays, and blacks. All these are color names showing a black or tawny ancestor. So also is the name of Doug or Douglas or Douglas, literally black swarty. Alright? Literally black black. Douglas means black black or black swarty. And that of Murray with its kindred forms of Moor with the E and etc. But these only were the original name, did not signify the Moravian, whether in Latin or in Gaelic. Maybe it did. Gotta go further back. Such are the kind of names that directly point to a descent from the Moors, so-called Moor. Of those that do so indirectly, nothing need be said here. But in saying this, it is not meant that such names nowadays necessarily indicate that the bearers of them had one or more Pictish ancestors, because it is well known that the surname of the feudal superior was given in many cases to his vassals, though wholly unconnected by blood. Okay, that's a big one right there. That's a big one right there, because they're saying a lot of people did get that name not from the original owners or because they were from the family, but because the kings were kind of giving it to the regular people. No? Consequently, many of the unwilling followers of a black oppressor might transmit to their descendants a surname that denoted a complexion vastly different from their own. Nor it is to be supposed either that a real descendant of Macduff, a black or a Macduff, must of necessity be found in the ranks of the dark whites, for a patronymic indicates nothing more than a descent from a certain individual, one ancestor out of a myriads. They say that in the southern states a man is counted a N-word if he have ever so slight an infusion of Negro blood in his veins. Nothing but the most paltry prejudice could so define him. When a man is 9/10 white or 9/10 black, he is white or black before anything else. But if the Negro ancestor of such a 9/10 white man had lived amidst a white population whose ideas with regard to nomenclature were as primitive as those of our ancestors 8,000 years ago, his offspring would have eventually become known by some such name as black or Negro, used as a surname. Precisely the same thing has actually happened here. We know as a historical fact that Niger, Dubh, has lived and reigned over certain black divisions of our islands, and probably over white divisions also, and probably over white divisions too, and that a race known as the Sons of the Black succeeded him in history. But just as our hypothetical Octoroon family of the other side of the Atlantic might forever after continue to intermarry only with their white kindred, so might our British octoroons have done likewise, with the result in either case that the far down posterity of the Negro or more would be so white today that no ethnologist could detect the presence of any other blood. That's pretty deep. So basically, what he's trying to say is a lot of so-called white people descend from so-called Moors or so-called Negroes, right? Literally from in Europe and in the Americas too. I've been telling you that a lot. A lot of the so-called white folks in America descend from the original, you know, Black Europeans or even indigenous Swarthy Indians of America, and they just classify or pass as white today. That's what he's letting you know. And yet, in both cases, the male descendants would bear the surname first given to their remote authors, a surname signifying the black man. The fact is that most of our surnames are so old that while they argue with considerable force that this or that man is descended from such and such a race, they give us no help in finding out the predominating blood. Every one, unless the child of a cousin German, is possessed of 8 great grandparents, but the patronymic only shows the descent from one of them. The other 7 are wholly ignored, so that if one's pedigree is not complete enough to point out clearly and with authenticity a feature which thou the most important is perhaps the oftenest disregarded, every line of the descent back to the days when each surname had a meaning, the genealogy is only of partial value in any argument of this kind. Nevertheless, the names exist, and with those of topography and of usage already quoted, and with many a record in written and oral history, they emphatically tell us of a large section, all right, of our ancestry whose complexion was black, period, period. That's facts, history. No matter how you feel about it, you don't know, so don't judge. They emphatically tell us of a large section of our ancestry. This is a British guy, right? Whose complexion was black. And that is the end of chapter 9, guys. Yep. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a pretty good read. Again, if in case you got here late, we were reading from this book, Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1 by David MacRitchie. We were reading chapter 9. We read a lot of these chapters. We're going to continue to read more of these chapters and also get into Volume 2. Volume 2 got so much more drop as well. There's still a lot of more drop coming with this and other books and other information that corroborates, that goes together with all the other research we've done, that goes together with the anthropological books, what they're saying, these anthropologists, what they said about the early people of Europe, what the science is saying now, what they're declaring now, the first people in a lot of these regions of Europe as being swarthy or dark complexion. They make their prototypes today and they show you. I'm just gonna mention Cheddar Man and everybody else they're showing. But the point is, yeah, they were, as they're saying here, you never know. You never know, 'cause there's a large section. He's saying of these, what I guess he would say white, so-called white folks, ancestry whose ancestors' complexion was so-called black, right? So-called black. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the reading. We're gonna end it right there. I'm gonna give you your Friday evening back, your Shabbat back. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for your patience with me and reading live like this is not always easy. There was a moment there I was kind of getting like a little dizzy. I don't know. It's because I went to a chiropractor today, guys, and I'm drinking water right now. And oh yeah, it was painful because I'm treating my clavicle bone injury I had a couple months back. Yeah, but it's all good. He said, there's good hopes for me healing at least completely the pain, you know, and all that. So maybe I don't know, maybe it kicked in, but it's all good. It's all good. Don't worry. We all good. We good now. Yeah, the water's hell. Water, water. Hey, yeah. Hold on. Let me go. Let me get this song. Appreciate everybody that came through in the live chat. If you were here in the live chat, hopefully the moderators were here and no negative stuff happened. Hopefully. All right. But thank you guys. Thanks to the Patreons for supporting what I do, holding me up. YouTube be hating a lot. YouTube makes it very difficult. Not sure how these other people make careers out of it, but it's all good. We got other things going in the background, other projects here, in personal life, so we don't depend on stuff like that. Sorry. I'll give you your Friday evening back, guys. Thanks for tuning in once again. Appreciate you. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Hawa. Hawa.